The night my marriage ended, and the silence that changed everything. I don't usually share personal stories like this, but some moments in life leave such a mark, they demand to be spoken aloud. My name is Elliot Crane, and this is the story of how my marriage ended. Quietly. And how that silence, of all things, taught me what love was never supposed to feel like. The night after my divorce was finalized, I checked into a run-down motel off the highway. It wasn't special: linoleum floors, flickering hallway lights, and the faint smell of coffee and cleaner that clung to the air. But it was quiet. And quiet was all I could handle. While I waited for the key, the receptionist, a woman probably a few years younger than me, looked up, paused, and without judgment asked, "Rough day?" He nodded. "Finalized my divorce." She didn't blink, didn't pity me, just slid the key over the desk and said, "Not all endings are failures. Sometimes they just mean you stopped pretending." Her words hit harder than any argument I'd had in the last year of my marriage. She didn't know me, but she saw something I hadn't yet admitted out loud. I had been pretending. The last year of my marriage to Lena was a slow-motion unraveling. We hadn't screamed at each other. There was no betrayal I knew of then. Just silence, distance, a kind of emotional anemia that spread through our house and infected everything. I remember the day she told me it was over. It was a gray Wednesday. I just walked in from work, my tie half undone, exhausted from the monotony of the day. Lena was on the couch, sitting too still, her hands neatly folded in her lap, like she'd been rehearsing something. The moment I walked in, I knew. Her eyes didn't blink. She didn't ask how my day was. She just looked at me and said, "This marriage isn't working anymore. You know it." It wasn't anger in her voice. It was resignation. And that scared me more. I stood there in the doorway, frozen. I didn't even ask why. I just stared, trying to read her face, wondering if this was some kind of test or mind game. But she was calm, composed. Without waiting for a reply, she pulled a folder from beside her. "Divorce papers. I've already spoken to a lawyer," she said. "We don't need to make this messy. No kids. Not much to divide. Let's keep it clean." I wanted to scream, to ask when she stopped loving me. But something in her eyes told me she had already left long ago. Her body was the last part of her to catch up. So I nodded. What else could I do? In hindsight, the signs were everywhere. I just didn't want to see them. It started with the Friday nights. Girls' nights, she called them. At first, I didn't think anything of it. She needed space, I figured. Time to laugh, decompress. But week after week, it became a pattern. She'd spend hours getting ready. Tighter clothes, heavier perfume, and heels I hadn't seen her wear since our early dating years. Then she started coming home late. Drunk. When I tried to talk to her about it, she rolled her eyes and accused me of trying to control her. The third Friday, I told her straight, "If you walk out that door again like this, don't call yourself my wife." She laughed. Told me if I put as much effort into making more money as I did trying to control her schedule, maybe she wouldn't feel so suffocated. Called me ordinary. That was the first time I realized she didn't just want space. She wanted out. After that, she stopped going out. But she also stopped speaking to me. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was brutal. Cold. Our house wasn't a home anymore. It was a waiting room for the inevitable. When the divorce proceedings began, Lena made it sound like she wanted to be fair. But then she said she wanted to keep the apartment. "It feels like home," she said. I remember thinking, more than I do. My lawyer wanted to fight it. Said I had every right to claim half, force a sale, push back. But I didn't want the walls. I wanted peace. So I gave her the apartment. I took the car and the long-term investments I'd quietly nurtured. That was enough. I packed my things one by one. I didn't call any friends. I didn't want sympathy. I just wanted to disappear without explanation. That's how I ended up in that motel. 2 weeks passed like fog. Barely spoke. I existed. The receptionist, Marla, never asked questions. She gave me coffee in the mornings. nodded politely when we passed in the hallway, and sat outside with me some nights on the metal bench near the vending machine. Sometimes we'd talk. Mostly we'd sit in silence. But it was a healing silence, not the kind that filled my old home. She never asked what happened. I think she knew that sometimes people need space to rebuild their stories, not just retell them. Almost a year later, I learned the truth. Through a friend I hadn't seen in months, I found out Lena had been seeing someone else during those Friday nights. The dinners, the outfits. It wasn't about her friends. It was him. Apparently, she thought he was her ticket out. That he'd rescue her from the average life she said I'd trapped her in. But things didn't go the way she planned. He strung her along, made vague promises, and eventually lost interest. When she pushed for commitment, he pulled away. They broke up not long after our divorce was finalized. I wasn't angry when I heard it. I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt nothing. I had already made peace with her leaving. The affair just explained what I already knew in my gut. She had been gone long before she ever handed me those papers. I went to therapy. Week after week, I dug through the rubble of what I thought was love. I discovered how often I had made excuses, how often I had mistaken endurance for connection. My therapist helped me realize something powerful. Just because someone doesn't see your worth doesn't mean you're worthless. I stopped asking why she left and started asking what I deserved. And you know what? I deserved more than just being tolerated. I don't know if I'll ever remarry. But I'm not bitter. I've just made peace with solitude. I've found value in my own company. Marla still visits sometimes. Not often. We share tea on the porch or walk around the block. We don't call it anything. But she reminds me what calm feels like. Not everything has to be romantic to matter. If you've made it this far, thank you. And if you're in a place where silence surrounds you too, just know this. Silence doesn't mean you've failed. Sometimes it's the space where healing begins.